Nathan.
Alan, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. So we are going to talk about change, right? And we're going to do a series of conversations around change. So the first one is about how do we change? So I've got three questions I'm going to ask you, and we can then have a Q&A at the end of that. But I just want people that are watching to understand that change is inevitable, right? We move through childhood, through teenage years, that can be quite challenging, become adults. We can either choose to change, or that's the basis of the question, is at some point in life we can make choices, and sometimes we feel forced into it or it's an enforced change. So the three questions I'm going to ask you are, number one, when have you tried to change something in your life and you have been really successful? Second question is, when have you tried to change something in your life and you've been wholly unsuccessful? And the third question is, what's the difference between the two? And there's no right or wrong answer to any of those questions. So I just want you to be very honest with the viewers and tell us something in your life where you've wanted to change and you've been very successful.
The main one that stands out is being able to walk again after the surgery I had in 2022 is the main one.
Okay. The second one is, when have you tried to change something and you've been very unsuccessful?
This has been an ongoing battle, I think, and there be free from suffering, disease, and unhappiness. And this is a pattern that has been running through my life since kind of childhood, probably from the age of 3, when my dad left. Obviously, unconsciously at that point, had something happen to me at 5, and everything that happens before the age of 7 is obviously imprinted because we see the world and view the world and perceive everything through our subconscious nervous system. So that almost set the foundation for me then to see the world in a very reactive state, um, one that isn't safe, one that's full of threat. So that in itself creates an internal environment of unhappiness, suffering. And you stay in that state for a length of time, survival mode, your body can't function in that state. We have a finite amount of energy. When it's directed into that survival mode, it's a perfect environment for then disease to occur. So I'm on the path, hopefully, well, we're being successful changing these things, but that is with work that we've done together last year. They were the main points that came up with. The older I've got, the more aware I've got, but creating that change at a cellular level is something that is difficult to do. Like if you've got a problem on, say, a mind or conscious level and you're trying to change it on the physical level, you always loop back to that. And I think that's what I was doing. I was almost putting a plaster on a problem, feeling good for a month, 6 weeks, and then falling back out of that.
The third question is, what is the difference between the two? You being successful in walking in after surgery, and second, being unsuccessful to be free of disease. What's the difference between the two?
So there was an unwavering faith and determination and a real direction that it was going to happen. I don't think I ever really had a thought that I wasn't going to walk. If you look on paper and you look at the surgery and you speak to other people that have had similar surgeries, which I have, obviously everyone's different and these surgeries are very bespoke and there's so many factors involved. I was very blessed to have an amazing surgeon that managed to salvage certain muscles, etc. But to be able to do what I'm doing now, 4 years later, is almost unbelievable. Now, if I look back from a bird's-eye view, someone did say in the hospital that I probably wouldn't be able to walk without a stick again. So maybe subconsciously that was a bit of motivation to say, actually, we'll see. But there was no other option that I was not going to walk again. I was back at work 8 months after having like 75% of my pelvis. In hindsight, I wish I hadn't. I went back to work too soon, for sure. There was an unwavering faith that I would walk again.
And therefore, the one that where you were unsuccessful, that's the difference.
Yeah, lack of faith, self-doubt, self-confidence, comparison to others, imposter syndrome, not being enough, and it all stems into that blueprint that was created from such a young age. And then I was always looking for external happiness, external environments, partying and drink, trying to get validation from external sources rather than being able to sit there and be happy from within, which is where true happiness is. If we're not happy with ourselves, if we can't love ourselves, if we can't be kind to ourselves, can't be kind to anyone else. And I wasn't. I was good at lying, and I was good at putting a show on and pretending that I was this amazing person, but really I was a shell of the person that I was portraying. And then it got to a point where I was just like, things need to change, or I'm either going to die extremely unhappy or die way before I would like to.
What I want to say is thank you for being so honest in a world driven by fake news and digital communication and crafted messaging and jargon and acronyms and all those wonderful things. Being authentic, I think, is one of the most important things going forward in life, where change is happening to us right now, in the world of work and everything else. So what I wanted people to really understand and look at was the language you just used to describe the answers to those three questions. If people are watching, they'll see that the first question I asked is, when did you change something and you were really successful? I think you probably gave me a one sentence answer. Mm-hmm. When I learned to walk again after surgery, right? That was it. And then the second question I asked you was, when have you tried to change something and it's been unsuccessful? And you gave me an entire chapter and story of why, right? And then the third question I asked you, what's the difference between you? And I think that's when you brought it home to you that it's what drove you was the happiness on the inside. Because the first one, you were going to walk again after surgery, and someone actually said to you, I think you're going to need a walking. How much of a driver do you need to get beyond yourself and walk again? The second one was really talking about all about the past. So the ones talking about determination for future, they're the ones talking about the past, and that's the one that's you haven't moved the needle on. So do you want to sort of go through that with us? I think you've given us the answers in the answer to question 3, but I just wanted you to be aware that the immediate answers were single sentence, full description, and then you really did think about what was the difference in the two.
Yeah, it's obviously our futures are normally governed by past experience, and if you are either consciously or unconsciously playing those stories, creating the same feelings, emotions, and thoughts, you will find things that feed into that narrative, which is what my life was about. My life was about survival mode. It was about stress. So then I would find anything that would fuel that. Stressful relationships, drink, feeling after drink, partying, coming from being here to here, all things that kind of fueled that feeling that back then I wasn't conscious of. Now I am, hence why I'm on this path and journey of creating more ease, which is obviously the opposite of dis-ease. I'm a lot happier in myself, but obviously emotions fluctuate. Another thing that I've come to learn and appreciate is emotions are energy emotion, and a lot of the emotions I used to feel at a young age weren't expressed properly. They were probably suppressed. They weren't understood. They weren't felt effectively, and that gets stuck. And then that energy getting stuck again is another environment where there's yes physical aspects to health, but we're energy. Like we're more energy than matter. So if we are then not navigating our emotions effectively or efficiently, and that energy gets stuck. There's research suggesting that a lot of sickness and disease has an emotional component, and mine, where these tumors have been, the problems, it all makes sense to why, even the side of the body, to why I've had this. So I'm more aware, and also to show myself a bit more compassion, knowing that we're human and we're living this human experience. Like last week, I had a pretty rough time. I was in a pretty dark place through sickness, and obviously you feel more vulnerable, but then you start to catastrophize and your perspective shifts. But as you go through this and you cultivate more awareness, you can shift from that. So it's completely normal to feel that. Like, why wouldn't I? My life is extremely hard and I've got lots of stress, as we all have. It's all relative. But then we have to know how to move the needle the other way. It's when we get stuck, either too happy or too sad. Like people that are there all the time, they have to drop down. So I think I'm pretty good now at, one, being aware, navigating, but also communicating where I'm at to myself, the people immediately around me. Whereas before, it would be a narrative for me to create a stressful environment again. So whether that be with a partner, my mum, or whoever, to get that stress, get that interaction, get that that fight or flight fired.
But what I want to come back to is I want you to replay this, because as an observer of you and your life and change that's been successful, change that's been unsuccessful, and how you talk about those two things, we know there's a real issue now around the language you use and the words you use, right, with yourself and with those around you. And we understand through the process of understanding the mind, the nervous system, and neuroscience, and all those wonderful things in neuroplasticity, we also understand that you can change. But we also understand that the language you use can affect you. And you're absolutely right. And emotions are important to recognize, because that's energy in motion. So if your energy is stuck, it's no longer moving, and therefore we're stuck. But I still come back to that first question I asked you about, what have you done in your life where you've changed and you've been really successful? Single sentence. I walked into surgery. Now, it was like, there are two ways of looking at that. It was like, well, of course I was going to walk out of surgery. There is unwavering faith and belief in yourself that you're going to do that. There's no way you're going to stay in hospital. You know where you're going to walk out with a walking stick. You are absolutely 100% on a cellular level. You just knew that you would walk, right? Again. And now there are questions around that. It's like, well, you already know how to walk. You knew the how to. You just had to get on and do the work. How to be free of this issue and this disease that you had gone through and are going through. Do you know what your body looks and feels like without it?
No.
Is the question.
That's
too long ago.
Yeah, too long
ago. That's your past. Yeah. But your past is so dictated by your illness for such a long period of time that it's become the reference point for you to use. And a lot of people will use their past to dictate their future. And what you and I both know from other work that we're involved in is that to detach from that is really important, because you have to embody a whole new self and absolutely have unwavering faith and belief, like you did when you walked, that you are healed and that you are whole. And that's the thing that I want you to think about, is that unwavering belief and faith, because we know what you know is wrong, but do you know what is right, is my final question.
That's what I am still surrendering to. Some days are easier than others. The more physical pain I have, obviously, the more difficult it is, which I have been recently, like waking up in the morning and things like that. But yeah, it's I think that my surrendering to it is the bit I find most difficult, which I've been saying this for a long time. and I'm getting better at it. And there is definitely a level of surrender that is better than it was. But that's the work for me, I think. And whether I get to that point or not, the point is that by me being more aware, which is the point of meditation for myself, and that's basically what meditation is, to be aware of ourselves, is I'm a better person for it. The more that I become and change into the person that I want to be, I feel that's why I'm where I'm at now.
In a three-dimensional world that we live in, there is a distance between two objectives. We're at point A and we want to get to point B. So right now you're at point A and you want to heal, right? You want to heal. So you're at point A, and it takes time to get to point B, and there is distance and separation between point A and point B. Now that's the world we know and have loved our entire existence, and it's the only world we've ever really known. And that's based on Newtonian law, where there is distance between two objectives and you can measure that, therefore it is physically real. And that's the science we've grown up with in our education system. We understand that. However, we just alluded to more information being freely available to us now. We understand the study of neuroscience, neuroplasticity, but there is also this realm of quantum physics, not just Newtonian physics. And quantum physics shows us that there is no space between the solution and the problem, that it is an opportunity, like a sliding doors moment, to be within it. And if you can be at point A and at point B at the same time and embrace the solution to the problem, that's quantum. I want you to play this back, and I want viewers to play this back, to listen to the words that you're using, because you know the how and you know your why, but it's the when that's missing. You've talked about surrender, and you've said some wonderful things on this call, and I want you to then reflect on question A, question B, and question C. What did you change that you were really successful in? What did you try and change that you were unsuccessful with? And what's the difference between the two? And I think the answers are in the words you use. What question do you have for me? Just to round that up.
What kind of question would you want?
I'm saying that's enough for me, and I'm happy that's enough for everyone to view and see.
I
And
think
if
that's
everybody's happy, I think that's a really good space for us to close out on. And I'm really grateful that you have been so open and honest, Nathan, and so vulnerable on the call, because the greatest asset we have in this world is being human and being authentic. And I really appreciate it.